the last 10 days as a United fan haven't been the greatest. On the back of what I felt was a flattering result against Southampton, and that was rescued essentially by Ahmad's very late hat-trick. I think we've been pretty poor since Arsenal away in the Cup. I made a video a couple of weeks ago that I felt that Ahmad's performance masked a really poor performance by the rest of the team, and I don't think Ahmad was particularly brilliant that night either. But I think since then, I think our football, if not the results, has been quite sobering to watch. I think the result against Brighton was no surprise to anybody that's watched United for the last couple of years. Brighton at Old Trafford seemed to do a number on us every time, and you can't even say that they didn't deserve to win. They could have won by more. It didn't help with Onana having a game of the style that I thought he'd put behind him, but he was very, very poor in that game, and because of the poorness of his performance, started to raise all these questions about should Bayern be playing. I don't necessarily think that that's the answer either, but Onana's performance helped to bring to the surface a lot of doubts and concerns that people have had for the last 18 months or so. The result everyone saw coming. I don't know many people who were expecting us to beat Brighton, and yeah, we never looked like beating them, to be perfectly honest. I think the not saving grace as such, I think the game against Rangers, a side that shouldn't really be causing us too much problems. And generally speaking, he didn't until he equalised. I don't think we were ever in much danger of losing that game. I think the scoreline probably looked closer than it actually was. And to be honest, a bit of a miscalculation by Maguire led to their goal. The fact that we then went up the park and scored a minute later tells you pretty much everything you need to know. If we'd wanted to score, we could have scored. And when we did need to, we went and scored. Not a performance that anyone's going to get overly excited about. And I think similarly, the result against Fulham are not a bad side. We only scraped to a victory at the start of the season. Scraped to a victory sort of last weekend. And I think the performance is pretty much what I was expecting, and what I think I mentioned a few weeks ago. I think it's got to a point now where the points are far, far more important than the performance, and I think Amorim has took that on board. I don't think he's certainly not changing his system, but I think he does appreciate that he can't go on losing games. Consequently, we have to win however we can, play in the formation that he wants to play. So it is very much a defence first setup. Everything it's more about the conceding less, not scoring more. Which I think that's probably as pragmatic as you're going to get. I think he's had long enough at the club now to recognise that some of the players that he's tried to change into better players are playing at their maximum level. They can't get any better, and that's not good enough. So he seems to be accepting that he's not going to be able to make too much more out of the players he's got, so he's just going to have to make sure that we don't get beat too often. And I think from the way we played, I think he'd have probably been not happy but content if we'd got a point on Sunday against Fulham. The fact that we snatched it was probably more than he would have anticipated. And again, I get that. There's only so much you can do with some of them players. Some of these players have been underperforming for years and years and years. They were never going to turn it around just because they changed manager, because they haven't done it previously. We've changed manager often enough to learn that some of these players aren't capable of changing. They're doing what they do because that's all they can do. And unfortunately, I think, or fortunately, I suppose, Amorim has accepted that and think, okay, this is what we need to do. Against teams that sort of aren't going to be coming at us, this is the way we need to play. Is it inspiring, exciting? Is it balls? Fulham was a terrible match to watch. And I don't think the Rangers game was a great deal better, and I don't think the Southampton game was an awful lot better either. I think it's just the way it's going to be until he gets rid of the players he wants rid of, and it brings in the players that he actually wants to bring in. Where we are with Dorgu at the moment, I have no idea. I've seen some, I think Romano said last night, it was, here we go, but I've not actually checked today to know where we are on this, because I can't be asked with January transfer window at the best of times, and that the lather that some channels are getting themselves into about every single thing. Christ, they're all wetting themselves about some 17-year-old lad from Arsenal. Who gives a flying? We could never hear from him again, for all we know. That's left us. I mean, believe it, I think we've got 4 wins out of 5 games, including the Arsenal FA Cup game. And on the face of it, that doesn't sound bad, and it's not bad if you don't look at the performance. The result is what it is, and the result is the most important thing. We need to essentially get through this season, hopefully improve a little, and see where we end up. I think it's clearly looking like the Europa League is going to be our main focus. Win tomorrow, that means we don't have to play another 2 games or qualifiers or knockout rounds or whatever they are, and we go straight into the sort of last the serious competition. That seems to be where we're going. The only real bright spot over the last 10 days for me has been the ruthlessness with which Ruben Amorim is starting to run that club. The stuff that he said about us being probably the worst Man United side ever. I think there is an argument to be made for some of that being lost in translation. But to be perfectly honest, he's not a million miles away from the mark at the moment. We're not a very good side at the moment. We're nothing like you would associate with Man United. And for me, I think that's where he was probably coming from. We don't play like Man United. We don't look like Man United. And we seem a long way from getting back to that point. For me, I think that's where he was going at it. But the media were never going to be looking for nuance in anything he said, because they don't. They'll sort of sensationalise anything he says anyway, because that's what gets people interested. His comments about Rashford, though, I think are quite funny. If your manager, having worked with you for 2 months, says he would rather play the 67-year-old goalkeeping coach rather than Rashford because the goalkeeping coach is more motivated and performs better in training, how much more of a damning indictment can you get? And as regular as clockwork, there'll be stories. Rashford will get his favourite journalist to put a sort of soft story out about him. Oh, he's not speaking to him anymore. Done nothing. Who gives a flying fuck? Read the fucking room. You've done shite for the last 3 out of the last 4 years. Just fucking go. You're not getting back in. He's not letting you anywhere near that team, and he clearly would rather play anybody else but you. Do yourself a favour, have a bit of self-respect and fuck off. You'd be doing everybody a favour, including yourself. Over the last couple of weeks, Ruben Amorim seems to have moved away from this jovial, convivial, chatty, easy to get on with, charismatic sort of fella. And I think not the real Amorim starting to come up, because I think that is who he is. But I think what we're starting to see now is probably what the players have been starting to see for about the last 6 weeks. He doesn't put up any shit. He'll give people a chance, and if they piss up the wall, that's them done. The stuff about smashing the telly. Christ, I felt like smashing my telly watching that. Christ knows how he felt being responsible for it. But I don't mind that. I'd much rather have a manager like that who knows he's pretty secure in his job and willing to do what he needs to do. Rangnick would have been the same. He just knew he was there for 6 months, and so did everybody else. With Amorim, he knows he's there for at least 2 years. So do the players. Some are buckling down. Some think they're bigger than the club and bigger than the manager, and they're pushing the luck, and he's not putting up with it. That, for me, is music to my ears. I just wish somebody had done that 5 years ago. They never did. Or if they did, they were ignored by owners who pandered to the players and not the manager. For his many faults, Ratcliffe, Barada don't seem to be doing that. They seem more than content to let the manager do what he feels he needs to do to get the team playing the way he wants them to. For me, that's brilliant. Much needed. And I'm not that I'm giving him carte blanche, but to a large extent, he can do a lot of what he likes, because why wouldn't he? If we were in that job, most of us would be doing exactly the same thing. because we've been witnessing this for years and years and years. He's been witnessing it for 2 months, and that's enough for him. I have no problem with that whatsoever. People don't like that. Tough shit, not asked. You have your opinions, I have mine. There are certain players in that club I'd be glad to see the back of, and Rashford is just the biggest name. Finally, was the goal-scoring performance of Lisandro Martinez, who has suddenly become our most potent, second most potent attacking threat behind Ahmad. And that's probably one of the things that I'm starting to notice more and more is the way that our back three is becoming almost supplementary midfielders. Not so much Maguire as such, but in fairness, Maguire is getting up quite a lot. De Ligt is getting up quite a lot. But Martinez, I think because of the inadequacies that we have on the left, he seems to have taken upon himself to be more proactive, to fill the gap that's being left by either Dalot's aimless wanderings, Garnacho's struggles to get to grips with how he's being asked to play, and similarly Mazraoui's as well. Martinez seems to have taken upon himself to be a lot more front foot. He still has I don't think he's anywhere near where he was 2 years ago, but he is a lot more on the front foot. He is spotting opportunities that other people either aren't seeing or are a little bit reluctant to take advantage of. And he's putting himself in positions where he's 35, 40 yards away from the opposition penalty area and willing to have a shot. He's willing to sort of float across to the back post. When you look back over the last 6 months, it's him, his goal against Fulham, his goal against Liverpool, his assist for Ahmad in the derby, his assist for Bruno against Rangers, I think it was. You can see when you look at the highlights, you can see how much more forward thinking he is, how he's taken advantage of the gaps that are being caused by the formation in front of him to get a shot off, get a cross in, that sort of stuff. Thank Christ that he's doing that. Because God Almighty, we need him. But that is a really pleasing aspect of this change in formation for me. The expectations that are being placed on certain players, some are taking advantage of it, Ahmad being the most noticeable one. But I think Martinez seems to be going under the radar a little bit because of his position he's playing. But when you start to look at the highlights and you watch some of these videos and you see just where his starting point is sometimes and where he ends up in some of the positions, some of the times he's not getting found by his teammates, fair enough. But he is winning sort of challenges, getting on the ball quick. He did it against Liverpool. He's nipping in there, he's getting the ball, and he's found himself 35 yards out from goal, and he's got a decent shot on him. He's got a decent cross on him, and he's hard to mark coming from where he is. That for me is one of the more pleasing things that I'm starting to notice about the way United are playing. We're a long, long way off from where we need to be. The manager seems to know that. Some of the players seem to know that. Some of them don't. And I don't think they're the players that are going to be here for too long. I'm going to leave it there. I've not done a video for a couple of weeks, but I thought I'd just going to get one out now. I'm doing one on the number 7s for United. Yes, it's been done before, but I'm doing it anyway because I like that sort of thing. But hopefully I'll be back in a couple of days for another video. And if you like, share, subscribe, usual shit. All right, cheers, thanks.